Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Painted Springs Garage YouTube channel. Today I am working on my 2008 Ford Escape, also known as the Manscape. It is leaking exhaust from both of the exhaust manifolds, or Mani-Cats. It's exhaust manifolds with catalytic converters built into them. I take this off-roading and it gets beat up pretty good sometimes. The exhaust is really low underneath in the front, so if I'm going to hit a boulder or bottom out in the sand or something, sometimes the exhaust takes a hit. And I think that's why at least the rear is leaking, but also the front has a crack in it as well. For a while it's been a nuisance where it's just tick, 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 tick while I'm driving. I think you've heard cars doing that before. But now it's leaking enough exhaust that I can start to smell it inside, so they really need to be replaced. So my goal tonight is to get this up on jack stands, get some of the shields out from underneath, and probably get the Y pipe out. But then in a couple of days I'll get the rest apart and back together, kind of as I have time. So let's get this apart and get it fixed. Well, I've got the car up on jack stands now, so I can get underneath and show you a little bit better what the problem is. And here you can see this is a catalytic converter. That's what I call it a Mani-Cat, because the manifold that bolts to the engine has the catalytic converter built into it. And it connects to a pipe here. Here you can see some battle scars from going off-road and hitting things. Then on the further back on the engine here, and don't mind the oil leak there. Is that all oil? Huh. Maybe I'll have to take a look-see-poo at that, see what's going on. But on the back of the engine here, there's another manifold, really tucked up in there. There's next to it is one of the axle shafts for the front. Then this one, let's see here, can we see way up in there? Yeah, you can kind of see where the flange bolts to the engine. This one's leaking way up at one of the flanges. Maybe I can see better from back here. Let's see. Can we see in there? Yeah, not super well. Might need to... Yeah, you can see where it's a little bit darker there, but I'll get some of this stuff out of the way and I'll be able to see that one better where it's leaking. I know that the front one is leaking from somewhere behind this heat shield, because when I was smoke testing it with the smoke machine a couple weeks ago, I could see the smoke coming out right on this seam here. So it's leaking from somewhere inside of behind that shield. So let's get some of this stuff out of here and get those Mani-Cats off. Alright, so I've got the shields and the Y pipe out from underneath here. So there's just the exhaust muffler hanging down there by a wire. So now you can see the Mani-Cat a little bit better. And this Mani-Cat doesn't really even show any soot around any seams. So, I mean, I really think it's just leaking from behind this heat shield here. So we'll get that off and replace it. And on the back here, you know, this oil leak on the oil pan is just like dripping off here. And with the Y pipe off, the oil pan's like totally accessible. So I'm going to put a new gasket on that while this is apart. So I'll have to look up what kind of gasket it needs and get that. But now we can also see the rear Mani-Cat better. And let's see, can you see up in here? Maybe. Yeah, well, on that flange, you can't, I guess you still can't really see very well, but that flange up there where it bolts to the engine is where all the soot is. So I guess you have to see better once I get this out. So I still got to pull this EGR pipe off of the Mani-Cat, unplug another couple oxygen sensors, then just take all these bolts off the engine out, and we will be out of here. But holy smokes, this thing is just dripping oil. So let's see what kind of gasket we need for that, and get this oil pan. Hopefully it's just oil pan gasket. I don't think it's the bed plate. But yeah, we'll get this fixed. Well, it's been a few days since I've had a chance to work on the Escape here, getting the exhaust manifolds off of it, and now also the oil pan. And it's gotten a lot colder outside. About a few days ago it was like 50 degrees. outside, so with the stove going in here, it was nice and warm. And now it is 0 degrees outside, and with the stove running in here, it's like 40, 45 right now so far. Stove's been going for like an hour and a half maybe. So I'm going to get back to work on the Escape, get these manifolds off of it, get the oil pan off of it. Hopefully it warms up here a little bit more during that time, and keep on making some progress here. So one of the tough things about taking the Manicats out of here is that we have this this EGR tube here. This is the exhaust gas recirculation valve, and there's this tube that comes up from the rear manifold to that. So I gotta take this off here, which I already have. You can see this nut's disconnected. Then on the back of the engine, I need to get that one off the manifold. Let's see here. Yeah, so that one, I got it loosened up now, but man, that's hard to get to. Hard to get a wrench in there. It's a big wrench, 1.16". But I got that oxygen sensor disconnected now. You see that kind of hanging there. Got the front oxygen sensor also. Well, I guess not the front, but the lower one disconnected as well. That came off with the Y pipe. Then on the front Manicat, there's 2 oxygen sensors on here that both connect right up in there above the engine mount. So I got to disconnect both of those. But soon here, and here's that giant wrench that I need to work down there behind the engine to get that EGR tube out. But almost have the EGR tube out, then it's just a matter of disconnecting oxygen sensors and taking out a whole bunch of nuts. Hopefully none of those break, and we'll get those Manicats out. Okay, so I got the rear Manicat off the engine so far, and you can see here clearly where the exhaust leak is, because it is really sooty around that flange. Whereas the rest of it is pretty clean. It's dirty. I mean, it's covered in mud for reasons I can't explain, but this one here is very sooty, unlike the rest. If I look at it from the back side here, let's try and get some focus. Let's hold it up to the light. I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to be able to see light between the manifold and the flange there. So that would explain where most of my exhaust leak is coming from. So I got a aftermarket unit here that looks vaguely the same dimensions, but it's an aftermarket unit where they welded in the catalyst rather poorly and put some stickers directly around that. And this piece here is probably going to be like 1100, 1200 degrees just running normal. So I got to grind all those stickers off of here and transfer over oxygen sensors and stuff like that. But hopefully this one leaks less than this one does. All right, so I've got the oil pan off here, and actually I got it cleaned up and new gasket on it, just about ready to go back on. So that came out pretty easy. I let it drain all night, so there wasn't really much oil left in here to drip. The thing that really got me though is that there's 2 hidden bolts up here. So they're like up inside of this this area in the oil pan, and I couldn't really see them, so I was trying to pull it down and it wouldn't come down. Then I found those bolts and that fixed it. The only other thing that you really gotta look out for when you do this is where the engine block here and the front cover here come together. There's like a seam there. So when this is assembled, they put a little bit of silicone there. So you gotta just kind of drop the front of the oil pan down a little bit and get a razor in there and slice that silicone. Then once you get the oil pan off, you can clean it up. So that's nice and smooth now. And I'm gonna put a little bit of silicone RTV, the black RTV, on these spots where this mates up against the front cover there, just to help it out, make sure it seals well. But other than that, this is ready to go back up in here. And let's get this back together. You know, now the oil pan's going to be clean and not leaking. It won't be dripping on me, so I can put the manifolds back in. And by the way, I broke 0 studs doing this. I've had this out before a couple times actually. And previously, where there's a stud missing there, I broke that one off when I had the engine out of the escape a while ago. So I actually had to drill that one oversized, and I've got a bolt that goes in that hole, which works just fine. So anyhow, gonna get that cleaned up too and get our new manifolds in here. Well, I'm really happy with how those stickers came off with a little bit of heat. Actually much easier than I thought. They just kind of peeled off. And then use the grinder to clean it up a little bit. And these are ready to go. Now something else, these came with gaskets on them. I didn't know that they were coming with gaskets. They're kind of like a hard, papery, cardboard type gasket. I'm sure it's not cardboard, but that's what it feels like. But I also bought some steel gaskets. And I'm not sure which is better. What do you think? Maybe tell me in the comments. Should I put on the steel gaskets or those the gaskets that they came with? Or maybe I should put both gaskets on, like double layer them, or maybe no gaskets. I don't know. Tell me in the comments what you think. I'll figure it out and get them on there. All right, so I'm back underneath the escape here, and I've got stuff cleaned up pretty good and ready to put some manifolds back in here. As you can see, I've got the front of the cylinder head cleaned up, ready for a manifold gasket, the manifold. I've got the oil pan back on here. I took that off, cleaned it all up, put a new gasket on it, so it is no longer trying to drip oil on me. And then, although the back of the engine's still kind of oily, but only so much I can do about that. But you can also see up here, the rear cylinder head. Those ports are cleaned up, at least as good as I can get them. They look like they're kind of dirty still, but it's just some film on there really. So that's ready for a new gasket, and manifolds go back on. Okay, so I got the manifold on the rear of the engine bolted back on here. That's secure. And on the rear, it's got this tube for the EGR system. One end connects to the manifold here, and the other end connects over here, right off the intake of the engine. This is the EGR valve. And before I put these fittings back together, I like to put a little bit of high temp anti-seize on those. So the next one they need to come off, they're not stuck on there. So I'm going to put that tube back on, then get to work on the front manifold.
3:28 a.m.
All right, well, I've got a little bit of a dilemma here. I've got both of the new manifolds installed, but the Y pipe doesn't mate up to them properly. If I put the Y pipe on the front manifold, then where the flange is on the rear manifold, it's like half an inch out of place and clocked a little bit wrong, and it's not right. It won't bolt up. So I went ahead and I ordered another Y pipe from the same aftermarket manufacturer that I got both of the new Manicats from, the manifold converters. So now I've got the same brand Y pipe and converters, and that doesn't bolt up either. It's the same problem. It's like the rear manifold, the flange is like half an inch too far forward to bolt into the Y pipe. So I'm at a point now where it's like, are these manifolds manufactured wrong? Is one of them manufactured wrong? It seems to be the manifolds, because the Y pipes look like they're like exactly the same. So I guess what I'm going to do now is pull the rear manifold back off and put the old manifold back on, at least mock it up with, a couple of nuts in place, and see if then the Y pipe fits in place with the new front manifold and the old rear manifold with either one or both of the Y pipes. So I'm going to swap that manifold back out, see if it fits, and I guess I'm going to be exchanging some parts here, because they just don't fit. And that's frustrating. So we'll see what the problem is here. Okay, so I think I have figured out what the problem is here, and I've got another way to confirm it in a few minutes. But what I've done is I've taken both, this is the old manifold, Manicat, and what I've done is I've set it up on the bench here so that the flange here is flat. And then if I look on my 2x4 here, the stud hole, the edge of the stud hole is basically lined up with the edge of the 2x4. And then I traced it. And this one I traced with a green pencil. It might be a little bit hard to see, but there's some green pencil there. And then I did the same thing here with the new Manicat, which by the way is quite a bit lighter weight. So I put that here so the flange is flat, and I line it up so that the stud hole is basically at the edge of the 2x4, and I trace that in regular pencil. So I can see how the two align. And, you know, it's kind of close. You can see, you know, these ovals are the new Manicat where the studs come through and they got little circles on the old one. And, you know, they line up pretty close where they should go in. But something else I did was measure at the top here the distance between the 2x4 and that flange to kind of see how steep of an angle that flange is mounted. Because the more that's angled, the whole thing is going to be angled accordingly with it when I bolt it to the engine. And what I found is that when I have the new manifold up here, that the new manifold has one, it won't quite stand by itself, but it's 1 1/8 of an inch from the stud to the edge of that flange. And the old manifold is 1 3/16 of an inch, which means that the new manifold essentially is going to be a little bit more biased this way. Which aligns with what I see at the Y pipe. It won't bolt up because the flange is too far inward. And on top of that, this Aftermarket cat, you can see that there's like a plate here that separates where all these pipes come together. Then this section in the middle is the actual catalyst. And then it goes down to the flange for the Y pipe. So this is also biased towards the front. There's room where they could have welded it further backward, and I'll bet that if they did, that's probably about the distance that I would need for it to line up properly. So the whole thing is just positioning this flange too far forward. So to confirm that, I'm going to put this old Manicat back on the engine. I'm just going to mock it up there and put probably 2 of the nuts in place to hold this in place, and see if the Y pipe will align with this flange on the old Manicat while I still have the new front Manicat installed. And that would rule out the front Manicat as being the problem. But if it still doesn't line up properly, then the front Manicat is also a problem. So let's see how this one matches up with the Y pipe with the new front Manicat in place, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so now I've got the old rear Manicat back in, and this is the original Y pipe, or the old Y pipe anyhow. So we still have the Aftermarket new front Manicat, and if we go down the Y pipe here, that flange is on. Go down the Y pipe, we've got it set in the hanger, and look up here, and that flange is looking good. That hole lines up. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see through the Y pipe flange and the Manicat flange there. And same thing over here. Can definitely get bolts in there. And if I put my fingers up, I can feel that on the back side here and on the front side over here, that it's about the same clearance, front to back on where the Y pipe is sitting against that Manicat flange. So that means that we have a bad rear Manicat, which is a bummer because I got to figure out how to send that part back and get a different part that hopefully fits. So stay tuned and see if I can get another part here. All right, everyone. So I've got a new, different brand Aftermarket manifold catalyst here, and it looks a little better quality. Like the design is better. It's got heat shielding on it. The flange, according to my stencil, looks like it's gonna line up where it needs to be. And also this area up here where I measure the gap, or really the angle of the flange that bolts against the engine. Well, it's not going to stand up, but it's about a 1 1/8 inch at the top, which is the same as the original Manicat. So I'm going to get this one bolted up in the car and see if the Y-pipe will mount up to it. Okay, so update. This part doesn't fit either. So if I line this flange up like exactly at where the holes are from my other original part. So let's see. Yep, that's pretty much exact. Look at that. It does not. The other one would have rested against the board here. In fact, I'll show you, because I have the other one right here. Let's get, come on, focus camera. So let's put this one, the original, back on those same spots. So there's that hole, there's that hole, that hole, and look, right up against that board. So, when I installed this on the car, not surprisingly, now that I see this, the flange was maybe 1/2 inch off from where the Y-pipe bolts up. So now I guess I need to order a different brand, because we are 0 for 2 now on aftermarket pieces fitting the Escape. That's still down for like 3 weeks now. So new parts ordered. Let's see if it'll fit.
12 seconds later.
All right, everyone. So behind me here on the floor, I have new aftermarket, different brand catalytic converter number 3, because number 1 didn't fit right, number 2 didn't fit right. I got refunds for both of those, and now I got part number 3 here. And the Escape's been down for like 3 weeks now because I haven't been able to get parts that fit, and without the exhaust, I really can't do much with it. So let's get this new part out of the box, see what it looks like, compare it with the original part that I still have on the bench, and we'll see if it fits. Oh boy, I'm excited here. So I got this guy out of the box, and I'm getting quite the collection here of rear exhaust Manicats. So this is the original one. You can tell because it's awful dirty. It's seen some things, a lot of off-roading. This is replacement number 2, which actually I got a refund for, but they told me I don't need to ship it back. And then I don't have replacement 1 because I shipped it back and got a refund. And then this is the new one, which appears like it's actually going to fit. And it appears like it actually matches what came off the car. So now let's take this new one. And by the way, this one costs like 3 times as much. And I guess that there's a reason why. So it's actually the right replacement part. So put those on there. And hokey smokes, it actually touches the board there. And yeah, this one doesn't want to stay in place. So I'll kind of hold it for a second. No, it's not going to stay in place. But take my word for it. I measured it, and the gap up here at the tape measure is right about 1/8 of an inch. So the flange lines up with my little mock-up here, and the angle of the upper flange appears to be right. So I'm going to bolt this thing in the car and see if it's in the right place on the lower flange to bolt the Y-pipe on it. All right, so I've got this is still the first aftermarket front cat that I have on here. I'm pretty sure that's going to actually fit. Optimistic about that. And now I've got number 3 aftermarket rear cat in here. And I'm a little bit optimistic that it might fit too. But I've got it held in here just with that one upper bolt because, I don't know, I'm not so optimistic I'm going to put all the bolts in, but, you know, it's in there pretty firm. So let's grab that Y-pipe and see if it actually fits. So again, this is the first aftermarket front cat. It's bolted up to the Y-pipe, loosely anyhow. And I've got the Y-pipe hanging back here. There's the rubber hanger. And would you look at this? Can you believe it? There's one hole lined up. There's two holes, a little hard to see, but two holes lined up. I'm about to cry here. This is my third catalyst I've had to install on this stupid thing. And it's not tight yet, but it's in there. And it lines up with the flange. So holy smokes. Whew! So I'm going to drop this Y-pipe back out and finish actually like fully installing that cat. I didn't even check to see if there's stickers on it. I better look to see if there's any stickers I need to remove from that. It's up there. Remove from that catalyst. I just slapped it in here and holy smokes, it actually fits. So let's get it installed, get the Y-pipe bolted back on, get this whole thing put back together. Put some oil in it because I pulled the oil pan off what feels like a month ago. Replaced the oil pan gasket since this was apart. And see if we can't get this thing fired up again. I have got the Y-pipe actually bolted back in here. And everything hooked up. All the bolts are tight. All the oxygen sensors are plugged in. So, and it fits properly. It's the original Y-pipe. Still kind of banged up. My oxygen sensor didn't want to come out of this one to go into the new Y-pipe, so I said I'll just throw some back on, order a new oxygen sensor later, and have it on deck with the new one. But I am ready to fire this thing up, and hopefully it doesn't tick or leak, on the exhaust. So let's get it fired up, see what happens. All right, well, this is the moment of truth. This has been down for like 3 weeks, waiting on parts, installing parts, getting different parts, installing different parts, sending parts back, getting different parts. Finally, oh, the radio. Finally, back together and ready to fire up. So let's see what happens. Woo. It's beautiful. I think when I bought this 6 or 7 years ago, it had a slight exhaust tick. And it's always had that exhaust tick since I had it, and it's been gradually getting worse. So then I took it off-road and banged stuff up, and it got really bad. This is the first time I think I have ever heard it run without that exhaust tick. So I am so happy. I still got to put the fender liners back on, put a couple other things in here, make sure the oil's topped off after starting it there. But I am so happy. So let's get the rest of it back together. We'll take it for a drive. All right, everyone. So I took the Escape out for a drive, and it drove wonderfully. Exhaust is completely fixed. No more ticking, no more leaks, no more smells. So the last thing I got to do now is just check the oil level and make sure it's at the right level, since I also did an oil pan gasket and changed the filter and oil and all that stuff. So, but anyhow, thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful or enjoyed it, please leave me a comment or like the video or subscribe or anyhow, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.